Most XRP holders have a price target, but no actual plan. And when the time comes, many sell too early or hold too long, missing everything. The truth is, when it comes to exiting with XRP, it's not about guessing a random number like $10 or $100. It's about knowing how much you actually need and building a plan that gets you there. So whether you own 5,000 or 50,000 XRP, by the end of the video, you will walk away with a plan. So with that said, let's get straight into the video. Okay, so a quick reminder for every video that we make that this is not financial advice and for entertainment purposes only. Nothing in cryptocurrency is guaranteed and you could lose all of your money. Stay safe and do your own research. Now the first point I want to get into is a trap that most XRP holders fall into, right? Framing the problem, because most people in crypto do not have a plan. They wait for a magic number, then they panic, get greedy, or watch their gains vanish in a crash. Profit means nothing without a plan. So it's really going to depend on three things that are important to you. One being your lifestyle, which again is personal to you. It's something I don't want to get into today. Second would be XRP's future price. That's speculative. That's something I don't want to get into today. The third thing that's actually in your control is your exit strategy. And when it comes to the exit strategies that I've used in the past, which have worked for the most part, go and check out this video where I show my wins and losses. 3 steps instantly come to mind. The first being setting target percentages, 2 monitoring key market signals, and 3 preset conditions for selling. So when it comes to targets, it's not about saying I'm going to sell $10 per XRP and that will be okay. What if that comes too soon or too late? When you have a plan based on percentages, it accounts for market variables. So an example here would be setting percentages ahead of time. So 20% of your holdings at $5 per XRP, 30 at 10 and 50 at $15 per XRP. And let's just say you had an actual target. Currently you have 10,000 XRP and you want to reach 50k. Following these phases, you would not only reach that, but have 1,000 XRP left over for future XRP exposure or selling at higher prices. Because I understand that most people within the XRP community do not want to sell their XRP. They're holding the majority of it for the long term, right? If you look at Bitcoin, the amount of Bitcoin you need to be financially free to retire, it keeps changing every single cycle. As the price increases, the amount decreases, right? It used to be 100 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin. Now it's 0.1 Bitcoin. By the next cycle, it's probably going to be 0.01 Bitcoin. And people have that idea for XRP. Also, they want to save their XRP to provide liquidity towards the AMM and earn a yield throughout the bear and bull market. I understand that, but you can still take profit with XRP while holding some for the long term. And the idea is to capture the upside of the move without gambling everything on one outcome. Now, moving on to step number 2, monitoring key market signals. Now, to me, this is only a guide, right? A lot of signals would have to be going off for it to influence my position, and too many people ride everything on one indicator. For example, the recent phenomenon, the M2 global money supply. Sure, for the past year, it's been somewhat correlated, but if you go back a couple, you can actually see inverse correlation. And between that, not much correlation at all. So with the M2 supply increasing, does that mean that guaranteed that Bitcoin's going to follow? No, it does not. Do not ride everything on one indicator. But here are a couple that I deem important. So the Bitcoin dominance falling sharply. So here we can see the Bitcoin dominance has not really had a big drawdown like back in 2017 or 2021. Does it mean this time is different? You know, this cycle has been ETF driven with Bitcoin, but unless this time's different, unless we're entering a new paradigm, we are going to see the same cycle play out. And it does make me somewhat confident the cycle is not over. Moving on to XRP outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum, that has happened somewhat, and that's why I took some profit on my XRP. And finally, insiders and big accounts selling their XRP. We watch this all the time on sentiment.net, looking at the large whale wallets, and there's not a big sign of a sell-off just yet. So if the chart's headed down rapidly, would I sell my XRP? No. More indicators would have to signal that to me. Moving on to point number 3, preset conditions for selling, right? The SEC case being officially over could mark a potential local top. ETFs approved, right? We know there's actual spot ETF approved and live in Brazil, and we have a futures ETF, right? It's not a spot ETF, but they do expect it to be approved within 2025. And another condition to keep your eye on for potentially taking profit with your XRP could be a record level reached of RWAs on the XRP ledger. Here's a tweet by Nick. We can see 114 million so far, consisting of tokenized stocks, US treasuries, bonds. Once that goes into the billions, potentially the trillions in the far future, that could be a signal to sell your XRP. Also, growth on the AMM, still in the early stages. CBDCs, a lot are still in the research experimentation phases, and Basel framework. Yes, delayed to January 2026, giving banks exposure to crypto like XRP. So now that we understand the plan in place where you have targets set before those targets are actually hit, you're monitoring market signals that you believe are important, and you have preset conditions for selling, like the ETFs for XRP being approved, just like that was a local top for Ethereum. Well, how much XRP do you actually need? Because that contributes to the goal that you have. You're trying to reach something. Well, it's going to be different for everyone. Someone who's 20 years old to 50 years old, someone that's living in the States compared to someone that's living in Bangladesh. So I always keep it simple and I always keep it real. Compare yourself to the rich list. Compare yourself of where you are in XRP to where you have to go next. So in the top 10%, that is a jump from 2,500 XRP to 8,900. So comparing to USD value, 2,500 XRP is worth 5.5k. 8,900 XRP is worth 19.5k. So a 3.56x increase. So if you follow this strategy, targets set in place before they're actually reached, you sold 20% at $5, 30% at 8, and 50% at 12, you would not only reach your goal, you would be above the original amount. So let's take it a level up, and let's just say you wanted to go from the top 5% to the top 2%, 26,000 XRP, around 59k USD. So you're trying to make that jump. You set a plan in place, you sell 25% at $5, 25% at 10, and 20% at 14, and you still have 30% left of your holdings, and you've reached your goal. And it all sounds easy in theory, but when it comes to reality, it's not as simple as it seems. That's why it's so important to set it out beforehand and have an idea of when to take profit and adjust in relation to market conditions. But I do believe that the next step up on the rich list is the easiest, most efficient goal to have, right? Trying to go from zero to a hero or 2,500 XRP to a million, it's just not going to work. So be sure to let me know down below, do you have a plan in place for XRP with a continuation of the bull that we've had so far? And are you going to stick to it? But if you made this far in the video, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.